Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Therapist Take podcast. We are going to talk about fat culture today, so don't go anywhere. Hello, Rebel.
Hello. Good
How are you
afternoon.
doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Very relaxed and ready for this.
Oh, so relaxed.
I can tell.
Yeah.
I can tell by our conversation we just had before. You were coming off as not stressed or anxious or
No.
anything about having all these cameras on you.
Not at all, because I never am.
And all the questions I'm going to ask, I have lots of questions that are embedded in research.
I can't believe you just gave me this list of questions.
I know. It's just to help get your wheels turning. Like, it's just a conversation. You have the best interviews on here, by the way. Like, they're my favorite ones to go through, and they also do really well in terms of
Carrie.
viewership. Yeah. Huh?
I said no offense, Carrie.
Are you saying it's not me? That's for sure. Must be the ones where it's just you and Carrie. Let's see how this goes when with me at the helm.
Yeah.
But I always like having you on here. So for people who don't know, Rebel is the I don't know how to describe you, like the business partner that doesn't want to be in the limelight, I guess, kind of thing.
That would be accurate.
Okay. And so we like to put you in there. Oh, you had the great airplane story that we talked about last time.
Yeah.
I love that. I made a YouTube short about that. It was so good. Even my wife we were laying in bed one night and she's like laughing, and I'm like, "What are you laughing at?" And she's like, "I'm listening to this part on your podcast." I didn't even know she listened to the podcast.
Awesome.
Which episode was that we did that on?
Courage.
Courage. That's right. We talked about courage. So if you guys haven't seen that yet, at least go back and watch the very first 5 minutes, and you can hear her story about the plane.
Ugh.
So good. I would have you tell it again, but we got to move on.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So just to kind of clue people into your credentials, or in our credentials, I guess. So we are both licensed marital and family therapists. We have certification in betrayal trauma treatment. So a lot of our episodes tend to kind of shift in that direction, even though we try to broaden the scope a little bit to talk about other things. And but one of the things that you've been passionate about, amongst a couple of others, is our eating disorders and body image and just overall general physical and health and relationship with food and things like that. So you are also a certified eating disorder specialist, correct?
That is correct.
All right, because I know for a while that was like you had worked on it for a while and then just kind of had like one course to do. So I couldn't remember if you had finished that final piece of it, but
I have.
But you have full certification now as an eating disorder specialist. So, which is it? We have done episodes on. I think we did one on disordered eating and the difference between disordered eating and eating disorders. But I thought we'd kind of venture out into like kind of the pop culture, I guess, a little bit, and talk about just this whole fat shaming thing that is seemingly. I mean, I don't know if it's a thing now. It seems like it ebbs and flows in terms like it becomes a thing and then it's not a thing, and it becomes a thing and then it's not a thing. So, so that's what we're going to talk about today. You ready for that?
Let's
you
do
ready?
it.
You got all your notes?
I have all my notes. I'm ready to go.
Yeah. All right. I just have like a list of what we're talking about. So, okay. So before we dive into everything we're going to talk about, let me first cover the housekeeping things and give everybody the episode breakdown, and then we'll dive into our first item to discuss. So in terms of housekeeping, just want to remind everybody the typical social media things that you're supposed to do. So like if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to ring the bell so you can be notified when more of our videos are posted or when we go live. And maybe even like the episode if you have that in you. But if you're listening to this on the audio platforms like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please give us a 5-star review. And again, if you want to go the extra mile, you can write us a nice little note and just kind of help the algorithm so it can get out to more people. And so I'm also trying to get, I'm a little disappointed in I had a goal this year of getting to like 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I'm like 4.5 thousand off on that. So that was a little ambitious goal, maybe, but maybe if people could share the video, subscribe, and encourage other people to subscribe, that could help us reach that 10,000 mark. It'd be really cool if we get to
We
10,000
have
by
2.5 months left. We
by
can
the
do
end of the year.
it.
It's like, man, we got 4,500 subscribers in 2.5 months.
We got it.
Yeah. And it's because of Rebels episode on the podcast. That's what did it.
Yeah.
So, okay, so let me give the breakdown of this episode. So we are going to start off by talking about this idea of fat shaming, and really, like, is the label of fat, is that even a shameful label? Should we even be saying that? So we're going to talk about that for a little bit. Then we're going to move into just the role of disgust in this world of fat shaming. And the third item, we're going to talk about this fat versus thin phenomenon, like this cultural phenomenon where it seems like fat gets preference over thin. Thin gets preference over fat. And then the very last thing, we're going to talk about acceptance, but particularly we're going to dive into what seems to be controversial, at least what I've seen on different, social media outlets and discussions about, does acceptance mean that we can't have a concern at all, So we're going to talk about that a little bit, and then we will have solved the problem. If people will listen to this, the world will be a better place, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So Rebel's got all the answers in her notes.
Sure. Sure I do.
So get ready. Okay, so let's start with this first one. So I thought about this one because does it feel that way to you? Like, what feels like to me anyways is that when I say the word fat, even doing this episode and saying it out loud, I can still feel some shame attached to it. Like I shouldn't be saying it. Like, does that happen to you still? Like, when you say the word fat, do you feel that?
Yeah, I think that there's still a negative association with the word fat.
Yeah.
I think that they're pushing to kind of normalize the word. I mean, it's a descriptive word like any other, being short, being tall,
Right.
being fat. But I think that there's still a lot of hurt.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like the same thing as saying ugly. Could you move your mic like closer or that way? Not closer to your mouth, but kind of in front of you. So you're looking at me.
I am looking at you.
Yeah, your mouth is facing me and your mic's over here.
I don't know what he wants.
I'm going to help her out here a little bit.
How about that?
Huh?
How about that?
I'm going to help you. Okay.
Now it's in front of my face.
Yeah, that's where we went.
You told me earlier to move it away from my face.
I didn't want it in front of the camera. But when you're looking at me, I want your voice going into the mic. There, we're good.
We did test
We're good.
the mics, by the way.
We did. As you were doing this, not this. It's a little does it sound different, Hannah, when I do that? Or is it the same? See, it's a little different. Hannah was over there freaking out. No, I'm just kidding. She didn't make a noise. Let me move mine out of my face. How do I still sound okay?
I'm sure glad I did not tell anybody about this episode.
This will be the greatest episode now. So back to our discussion.
Yeah.
Since we won't mic shame people, we'll talk about fat shaming. Yeah, I think it often is like equivalent to like almost saying ugly. Like if we were saying like, that ugly person, or I'm an ugly person or something like that. It just feels like it's in that same category to me. I feel like we just need a new word.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, really what a lot of people have started using is the word larger. Although, I think that they're still pushing to normalize the word fat.
Yeah, I mean, to me, fat is the substance that is creating the largeness, I guess, right? That is the physical thing that's on your body, but it's not me. I'm not fat. I have fat on me. I have a lot more muscle on me than I do fat, but we don't go around saying, "Hey, muscle."
Right.
I'm a muscle person.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
I just feel like, large. still feels like there's a little shame in that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think anything that indicates that you're beyond an average size. So I think for me, like probably plus size is probably the least shameful. I'm a plus size person. I like that better personally.
Well,
Yeah. But I don't know. Like if we're going for destigmatizing everything, I'm obviously was okay using the word fat because I used it several times in the episode already. So, but it just seems like that it still carries some connotation to it.
yeah.
But it's kind of like the word moist. You know, nobody likes to say the word moist.
That is true. That is kind of
But then
a
you're like, what do you say? Damp?
word.
I mean, wet? I mean, it all has some kind of discomfort with it for some reason.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And we'll talk about it here in a little while, but I think that fat, when people hear the word fat, unfortunately, they think unhealthy. And that's not always the case.
right. Yeah. Yeah. And again, as we'll move into the next category in a minute. We talk about disgust. That's definitely going to be associated with it too. But speaking of like, because I think you and I would agree that language matters, words matter.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the whole sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I think it's the original quote, but I think most
Right.
people would agree that words tend to hurt the most.
They do.
And so they're. I think I'd seen somewhere like that you shouldn't really refer to people as overweight either. Is that
Correct. Right.
what's the logic behind that?
I think all of these words just are
Mm-hmm.
hurtful. And I think that there's just been a
Mm-hmm.
stigma
Right,
about these words that have just continued on.
right. Because I felt like overweight was not as shaming in some way. Someone say, "Hey, I'm overweight." This is.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wonder if it might have to do with like that. Um, there's like whatever your understanding of what like I'm 44 years old, like a 44-year-old 6'3" man should be, and I'm over that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
out of that range, so therefore I'm quote unquote overweight. But since that doesn't isn't necessarily indicative of health, then like if
I think that for a lot of people, it signifies maybe laziness or not disciplined. I'm not
mhm,
going to the gym every day,
mm,
so I'm overweight, or I'm not eating healthy food, so I'm
right, so
overweight.
there's like some kind of implication with it
Yeah,
of not being healthy, which is I I know I don't know if it's recent or if I'm just late to the ball game, but I know it's been being talked about in that you can be quote unquote overweight and still if your blood panels are coming back and you're producing good numbers and numbers within range, then there's why would I tell you to lose weight,
right.
right?
Absolutely.
And so like I used to be real offended by like not really offended, just kind of in my own battle with body image and weight loss and things like that. I'd go, I'd go to the doctor for, it wasn't until like maybe a couple years ago that a doctor finally said, "Hey, I think you probably should lose some weight,"
Hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
And his concern was, I'm a pulmonologist, and his concern was mainly with sleep and sleep habits and things like that.
Right.
He wasn't even looking at blood panels, But I used to be like, I even had talked to people. I was like, not one time have I gone to doctors. Like I was mad at him for not telling me. Like they just tell me to lose weight, maybe I would.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it feels like medical neglect. But I'm like, my blood work always comes back good. Like my cholesterol is always good. My blood pressure is always good.
Right.
Even to this day, I don't have joint problems or anything like that. And by the standards of whatever like I said, whatever the range is that they historically would say a 6'3", 40-year-old male should be at in terms of, I was well outside that, but like I still got a clean bill of health, and
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
now I look back on it, I'm like, well, the reason they weren't telling me that is because I wasn't unhealthy,
Right. Exactly.
you
And I
know.
think that that is one of the cultural issues that we're dealing with right now. Um, yeah.
Right. And what I kind of wonder sometimes though, or one of my fears is that, you hear people say, well, it's all going to catch up with you. It's like, so I'm getting a clean bill of health right now, but is it going to be like the day I turn 45, or my knee's going to break down, and next thing I know I'm diabetic, and I mean, and then it's like a big "I told you so" moment. So, which I don't think that's how it happens, but
I don't think that's how it happens either.
right, but
Yeah.
that's like the fear. So, anyways, so to answer the question though, is the fat label, at least as it stands current in culture today, that is an okay label to say.
Technically, it is. I think in an ideal world,
Yeah,
that is okay to say because it is a descriptive word.
right,
I think that we still have to be sensitive
mhm,
in using that word
right.
because it does still hurt a lot of people um,
Yeah, I wonder if
and
it's kind of
offend
one of
people.
those words that you just you better just it's probably better to err on the side of caution, and just if you want to refer to yourself as that, great,
Mm-hmm.
fine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But maybe be careful about referring to somebody else
Right.
as fat,
Yeah.
because
I always think of, we were watching it last night. What's that movie? Pitch Perfect.
pitch perfect. Okay,
And
yeah.
Fat Amy
Oh, Fat Amy, yeah.
refers to
Which,
her
by
as
the way,
fat.
that actress has lost a lot. She's very thin and fit now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the reason she would call herself Fat Amy, do you remember? Because
I
they
don't.
asked her, why would you do that? And she said, because that's what it's ultimately that's what everybody else is going to do.
Mm.
So I'm just going to beat you to the punch. And
Oh,
and as much as like as a comedy and they're trying to poke fun at it, it's actually probably true in a
right.
lot of ways. That's one way people cope with things, and
Yeah.
it's sad. Okay, so let's talk about the role of disgust in shaming. When I think of disgust, Inside Out has ruined me. You've seen that one, right?
I have. It's been quite a
Yeah.
while. I've only seen the first
Me
one
too.
though.
Yes, fist bump.
Okay.
I thought I was the only therapist in the world that hasn't seen the
No,
second
I
Inside
was
Out movie.
actually waiting for Reagan because Reagan wanted to watch it, and then we just never got to it.
Well, I've heard it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I just need to buckle down and do it. But I love the disgust character, and
So,
of
what do
course,
you love about the Disgust character?
I think because she just acts like a 13-year-old girl. It's
Mm.
like, I mean, I just saw Carrie earlier today, and her daughter was up here, and I asked her like, how old is she? And she was like offended. She's like 8. I'm like, I'm sorry. She was really cute about it though, but it was like that's like. I mean, so I just love that character because it's just so sweet and innocent. It's like, oh, gross.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but for anybody who may not have known this, and if I'm wrong, anybody's welcome to correct me. But I'm pretty sure that that movie was they consulted pretty heavily with some of the top neuroscience scientists in the field to make
Oh,
that
I did
movie.
not know that.
So
Interesting.
that's a really intellectual metaphor to illustrate the phenomenon
Hmm.
of brain development and in certain key players and those 5 characters being crucial to our existence and survival. Um, and they describe Disgust's role quite well. In terms of like from an evolutionary perspective. Like you put something in your mouth that doesn't taste right, I might want to spit it out. And then I might want to remember how it tasted, so that when I see it, my brain is able to recall that experience, and then I feel disgusted. Like,
Right.
oh, gross.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Have you ever had any foods like that to this day you can't eat because of an
Oh,
experience you had?
absolutely.
Like
Yeah.
what?
Tuna. Ew.
Ugh,
Ugh.
yeah. See, you're feeling it right now.
Right now.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that experience with a banana once. It took me a long time to be able to eat a banana.
Oh.
After, like, I was eating a banana in the dark. Not a good idea.
Huh.
Not a good idea. You don't know where the bruises are, you know?
Oh.
And I'm getting down to the
Yeah.
bottom of this
Ugh.
banana, and I'm like, this doesn't taste right. And I, like, flip the light on, and it's just this black, gooey.
Oh
I'm like, what?
no.
And, like, for the longest time, I actually could eat bananas, but I would actually break off about an inch from the bottom because my brain was associating it with the end.
Right.
And I was like, and so I just forever could not, just couldn't do it. But yeah, I think we all can relate to that. And that's the point of disgust. So like, why do you think, like, how did this happen in our culture where we're like, we feel disgusted with fat people? I'm not saying everybody does, but I do think that um, it's not something that's just happening in the minds of plus sized people.
Right.
You
Right.
know, that,
Well, and it is interesting because, I mean, yes, moving into our culture and in our day and age, it does, for a lot of people, there's disgust there. But back in, you know, hundreds of years ago, fat people were
hmm
the rich and
right.
the beautiful. And
Yeah,
so,
that's why I like a lot of paintings from like the days of Michelangelo and things like
hmm,
they're not these trim cut muscular like they've been doing Pilates
right.
for their whole life, type paintings, it's like because that was thicker people were esteemed.
Hmm.
And my understanding of that again, just this is just going off memory here. My understanding of that is because if you were a thick person, then you had means to provide for yourself, because
Right.
you're living in excess,
Hmm.
So if you had enough food where you actually could put on some weight, then you were doing well for yourself, and that was attractive,
Right.
right?
Right. So, yeah, so leading into today's culture where,
Yeah, we want people to look like they're dying before they're
right.
beautiful. I wonder what that's about. How do we do that?
Right. I don't know.
Yeah,
And I think
like,
social media has a lot to do with
oh
that
sure,
and technology.
100%. Yeah, and so yeah, they're definitely, and I don't know at what point in time it was. I'm sure there's some social scientists out there that have um, better answers than we do to that. But there clearly was a shift at some point where then fitness became that component,
Hmm.
and then of course social media exacerbates it. I have, there's a lot of celebrities that have been railroaded on that stuff. Like Lizzo's probably the biggest one right now that has been raked over the coals, and she's a really amazing musician. Actually, when I was preparing for this video, I went and actually pulled some pictures of her up to just kind of see in some of the articles that were written about her. And I thought she's pretty classy in how she has, like I didn't see, I didn't feel disgust, but I don't, I should, in some ways, I'm like, I shouldn't feel disgust,
Right.
like she is a plus size woman, but she seems very confident, and she
Mm.
took, and like some of the, I think this is like red carpet type thing, like her outfits are really neat. And that's the thing that they were like, somebody else wears that same outfit, and they're not. People aren't going to look for reasons to, uh, be disparaging toward you. They'll probably say that's a great outfit, or I'm not saying that thin people who wear outfits don't ever get ridiculed by it by the media, but I'm wondering like if with her, like it seems like sometimes people are just looking for a reason um, to put her down because of her
Mm.
size.
Well,
You
I
know,
have to be honest, I don't know who Lizzo is, and that's really embarrassing. But
yeah,
so I'm not sure what's going on with Lizzo.
right.
Lizzo? Is that her name?
Lizzo, yeah.
Lizzo.
You
Okay.
know you're gonna look it up now. Well, you know who Serena Williams is. That was
I
one of the
do.
names I listed for
I
you,
do.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
So I was actually shocked to see that she has caught like, yeah. I mean, but she's so muscular. I mean,
Hmm.
well, I didn't know that. I honestly didn't know that she caught some backlash on her size. Um, the one that I think about the most, though, historically, is Jonah Hill, who I don't think you know. This one really shocked me. You do not know who
I
Jonah
don't
Hill
know
is.
who Jonah Hill is, but I also didn't know any of the movies that you referenced. So,
But his weight has fluctuated, where he's been very thin at times and very heavy at times. But I think most of the time he's probably gravitated toward the larger size. But I have a quote from him I'm going to read that I thought this was a tweet actually that I took a screenshot of. I don't know when he sent this, but so this is what he says. He said, I don't think I ever took my shirt off in a pool until I was in my mid 30s, even in front of family and friends. Probably would have happened sooner if my childhood insecurities weren't exacerbated by years of public mockery about my body by press and interviewers. So the idea that the media tries to play me by stalking me while surfing and printing photos like this, and it can't and it can't phase me anymore is dope. I'm 37 and finally love and accept myself. This isn't a good for me post, and it's definitely not a feel bad for me post. It's for the kids who don't take their shirt off at the pool. Have fun. You're wonderful and awesome and perfect. All my love. Then he says, oh, and Daily Mail, not even you can take that smile from my face. You know, it's just a beautiful post, I think.
That is
Yeah.
beautiful.
But, I mean, yeah, I mean, how many people, won't even go to the pool, much less get into a bathing suit of some sort in front of people,
Right.
or they go and in a bathing suit and then just wear a big old t-shirt and never get in the water type thing, and at a place where you're supposed, like, is one of the few places in the world that we kind of oddly get to take our clothes off mostly and no one says anything, you
Right.
know.
Right. Yeah.
It's culturally acceptable to basically, to walk around with almost nothing on, and
Right.
everybody's supposed to be okay with that, not looking at, oh, gross, you shouldn't be here.
Or
So,
feeling so much shame about what do I
right,
look like and comparing myself to others.
yeah, and it just seems like there's, like, I know that psychologically, like, there's how much of the disgust that I feel, which is shame based, is coming from me and how much is actually coming from others, because this is one of those things where um, people aren't being irrational by how other people see them or view them. Like,
Right.
I do think we can do that a little too much with other things. Like, if you think you're stupid, for example,
Mm-hmm.
you think you're dumb. Why? Like, I mean, you're not walking past someone and them going, I bet that person's an idiot. And maybe someone does think that, but if they do, like, how would you ever know?
Right.
And
And does it really matter?
it doesn't matter, right? But I do think that this is different. Like, if if a plus size person walks by somebody who at a pool or in some other context where they are uh, uh, revealing their body to some degree, um, it's not irrational to think that that person might be disgusted with me, and because, like, of facial expressions, like, disgust shows up on your
Mm-hmm.
face.
Right.
It shows up in your behavior, and, like, whether you're, like, avoiding somebody or you get awkward around somebody or your face contorts, and so it's a little bit different in that sense of just saying, like, well, this is all happening in your head. No, it's actually happening in the world.
Mm-hmm. But, I also wonder, I mean, yes, I absolutely believe that others will do that, but I also wonder how much, if I feel shame, if I feel disgust, if I feel embarrassed about myself, how much of that am I putting out to the world? And then for them in turn to see me
Right.
in that way.
Like a feedback loop.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
it feeds into itself. So,
Mm-hmm.
chicken or the egg, where did it start? Did it start with me feeling bad about myself and then other people bought into it?
Mm-hmm.
Or did I get shamed? And then,
Right.
now I would tend to think that it's that, that is where it starts, is culturally, like, it's learned that somewhere along the line, um, I learned to feel bad about myself
Mm-hmm.
and feel bad about my body.
Right.
But then, as I have bought into that narrative, I, that also comes across, right? And so you're not helping yourself. You're not helping change the narrative or help the cause by continuing to believe these things about you,
Mm-hmm.
um, and but yet expect others to not believe these things about you. It's the same thing with like when you talk about self worth in general,
Yeah.
like. The best thing I can do to convince somebody else I'm worth the trouble is how I say it. Is to believe you're worth the trouble. I mean,
Absolutely.
you're going to have a hard time selling any type of product, if you don't believe in the product,
Mm-hmm.
and so even though it probably isn't, I would venture to say that 100% is not your fault how you feel about your body. The responsibility of changing that does fall on us because we're the only ones that can do it.
Right.
And
Yep.
that sucks in some ways. I wish we could just flip a light switch or something and it changes.
But I do think a lot of that too. I mean, body image often um, is a representation of how we feel about ourselves.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm not worth it. I'm not good enough. There's something wrong with me. Oftentimes that does come out as a body image issue.
Hmm.
Um,
So maybe that's not where it began, is what you're saying,
right.
right?
Yeah.
So it kind of manifests itself, and
Mm-hmm.
well, that's interesting. That would be interesting to explore. Do you see that with clients you've worked with then, like
Mm-hmm.
where they have a body image issue, but it's the core of what's going on is just deeper
Right.
than.
So most of the time with eating disorder work, body image tends to be the last part of
Hmm.
it. And part of it is because we do have to kind of get our mind going in the right direction.
Hmm.
But part of it is because if we begin to change and shift that self worth that you're talking about,
Hmm.
oftentimes that body image issue tends to just kind of dissipate on its own.
Hmm.
Um,
That's interesting. But people can have like body dysmorphic disorder, for example, and
mm-hmm.
not have an eating disorder, correct? Like, I mean,
Correct.
there are people uh, that have insecurities about their like pathological insecurities about their bodies don't necessarily manifest into how they feel about food
Mm-hmm.
or anything, right?
Right.
Yeah, but that is interesting. I do I can definitely see how it can be more than one thing at a time. Um, but I haven't really thought about it as like there's some other deep seated
Mm-hmm.
issue going on, and it's kind of just manifesting itself
I kind of see
as
it
that.
like anger. I mean, anger is
Right?
typically a
Yeah, that's a
secondary
great way. Yeah.
emotion when those other emotions are primary.
Right.
That's kind of how I see body image. It's a secondary issue.
Mm-hmm.
But if we deal with the primary issue, it tends to
Right.
rectify
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah. I do think. Have you seen it where that just is the issue?
Body image?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have from
Okay.
time to time.
Like, cause I was just thinking about like culturally, for example,
Yeah.
like if somebody grew up just constantly hearing like, which happen, I've heard this from many clients, comments being made about their side, like you need to lose weight or you're not pretty. If
Mm-hmm.
if you want to be pretty, you need to be this,
Uh-huh.
and there's a lot of pressure of that on girls.
Or even mom saying, oh man, I look fat in this
Oh yeah,
dress. And so the daughter's hearing this and
yeah,
starting to
yeah,
try and make sense of
yeah.
that.
And what's happening, and let's just go ahead and move into the third topic, which is the uh, fat versus thin. And what I put on there is like there's a cultural imbalance because I think what you're talking about is moving into a cultural thing where we associate some kind of value with our body size,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so what you're saying, like this child is hearing because it's being reflected by the mom or the dad, is that I'm of lesser value at this size.
Right.
Like I want to be of value.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be of value, I must maintain a certain particular size.
Look. Yeah,
Yeah, look,
look. Size.
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And and again, um, I don't know. I haven't read the latest research on this, but I do remember reading some of the research on that. Like it is not, there is a precedent or preference is the word I'm trying to get out. Their preference is given to quote unquote pretty people over people who aren't as pretty, I guess, to say it that way. Um, and size plays into that. So I think I'd read like that, in courts, like uh, pretty people will get off more often than not. We'll
Right.
get charges dropped, won't get as severe sentences. In addition to some other things.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like in other words, if your image meets this cultural standard of pretty or attractive or whatever word you want to use,
Mm-hmm.
then preference is often shown to you. And I think we see that all the time with thin versus
Right.
plus.
Well, and unfortunately, we even see it in doctor offices. I mean,
We do.
we do.
Tell me, like, I want to know.
So a lot of, doctors who are not, who don't have a lot of knowledge of eating disorders or, body weight, I can go into we actually had, I've had a client who went into the doctor's office for a cold and just needed like an antibiotic and left with a weight loss medication, and so they're not, doctors
Oh,
don't
wow.
necessarily look at, pulling the
Mm-hmm.
blood test and look at lipids and look at
Mm-hmm.
the heart because they just say you just need to lose weight. And so they
Mm-hmm.
don't even look at
I wonder if
the
that's
rest of the
I wonder if
health.
that's happening more with women than men. Also, from a cultural point of view, like the body expectations I would think, our culture puts a lot more of pressure on women to look a certain way than men.
Mm-hmm.
Because earlier when I started this, I was talking about like how I was like upset, like that, like, I feel like it's medical neglect. And what you're saying is that it seems like that maybe with this particular person and maybe other women, I don't know if that's happening to men, but they go in for one reason and they're like, and they are telling them they need to lose weight, even though that's not why they came.
Right, right. And so when you were saying that earlier, my thought was, oh, this is a doctor who actually,
Right.
is aware of what to check
Yeah.
for in terms of health
Hmm.
versus the size.
Right. It's interesting, but also wonder how much influence comes with me being a guy and that just not being on the radar culturally for guys. Like the way I always kind of joked around about it is like, that I'll always say like for heterosexual couples, like that all women marry up, and it's like why is that? It's because there's not a lot to choose from. Like look at us, we're hairy and and we itch and scratch and beer drinking, beer
Mm-hmm.
belly, and it's just kind of a joke about like that. You guys are just more, or just prettier, as a group. You're just
Mm-hmm.
better looking. Um, but and so like I wonder how much of that like that stereotype falls into decisions that doctors are making on why that maybe they didn't say anything to me. Is how much of my manliness weighed into that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But the same thing too, like with parenting. Like my wife was telling me all these stories all the times about when she has the kids at a store or something, and some when our kids were little, and someone would come up to her and complain about one of the babies crying.
Mm.
Oh, that used to infuriate me, and I'm like, they never do that with me, And I wonder if it's because I'm a guy. The babies cry just as much, more
Right.
with me when we're at the store than they do with mom.
Hmm.
But no one's
Right.
ever. I can't think of one time someone's ever come up to me and said something to me about the baby crying.
Hmm. That is interesting.
Did that happen to you? Did anybody ever say anything to you with your
No,
babies?
I don't remember
Your babies
anybody.
never cry.
Yeah,
We know they're doing it
right.
now.
Oh Lord, don't get me started. Reagan, I hope you're not watching this.
I hope she is watching us. I love Reagan. She worked our panel once. She was Hannah for a day.
She was.
Yeah, I'd have her back in a heartbeat. Um, okay, so One of the questions I have on here is how do we change it? I don't even know if we have an answer to that. I think some of the effort is in place with that, where like when we say like this preference being shown, like I think marketing firms, everything, they're seeing the problem now. You can watch commercials, and they're including plus size people and not just the trim, thin,
Right.
fit people. It's quote unquote fit. There is a concept also called skinny fat,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And us plus size people are often very jealous of them. But you know what's well, real quickly, skinny fat, right? Being the idea that there's a lot of people that just from their DNA is just they're just going to be skinny,
Mm-hmm.
but they're
Right.
inside, like what they're putting in their bodies, and they're not living very healthy
Yeah,
lifestyles.
and I think that's one of the reasons why the whole notion of skinny versus fat does not
Hmm.
tell us who is healthy and who's not healthy.
Yeah, yeah. But one thing I was thinking about was like um, I had like there are two things that I feel, well, three now, I guess, but three things that I battle genetically that have bothered me over the years, but two of those came later. The one that has always been like in my face in a way is the weight stuff, is the
Mm.
body size, body image, right? My DNA has determined I'm going to be a large person. Now, do I have to be as large as I am? I don't think that's necessarily the case. But DNA does play. I'm convinced genetics plays a
Absolutely.
lot into that. The other one is hair loss. I wish I had
Mm-hmm.
hair. I lost my hair in my 20s. And then as I've gotten older, I've my skin has really it's just not fun.
Mm.
Let me just say that. But like I always have. I mentioned like I have a good cholesterol. Cholesterol's always
Mm-hmm.
good.
Mm-hmm.
The blood pressure's always good. I have good joints. I've never broken a bone.
Better knock on some wood.
I'm very athletic still. Even I think it does surprise people sometimes on how um, that I can still move the way that I can move, being at the size I am. And so like if I don't know, like I mean, I don't think I would choose somebody else's body. I think I would choose mine still.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had a choice, because I know, like, I got a pretty sweet deal on that front.
Right.
These other things and they all manifest outwardly: hair loss, skin issues, and and weight.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like, I don't wake up with my joints hurting.
Right.
I can still play men's baseball at 44, 45 years old,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, and so I was thinking about that. I'd still choose me over that. So
Well, that's
that's kind of
awesome.
cool,
That
I
is.
think.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, especially with eating disorder therapists, there's a big push for body acceptance, and body, you know, there's, we do some treatment called health at every size.
Hmm.
And, I think that that's wise because it's not, it is not whether we're fat or skinny
Hmm.
that makes us healthy.
Right,
And we have to look at those other issues, not just obesity.
right. I agree. Well, since you were talking about that, you mentioned the word acceptance. That is getting into our final point. Um, and we'll try to wrap this up soon because I think you have a client coming soon. But uh, okay, so I think like most people that are of sound mind and somewhat empathetic is going to agree that we need to be more accepting of people and stop being such turds
Mm-hmm.
to people that don't fall into this mold that we think they should. But I think one of the things that seems like is coming up in our culture is um, like that if I see someone, I guess let me say it this way: the fear of accepting the lifestyle of someone who is quote unquote fat means that health is just out the window. Like I can't say anything now. I have to accept you, and that I can't be critical or in any way, shape, or form. And I don't think that that is the case in a sense, or is that the case? Because I think what people are like, what I think those people. I'm not in that camp, by the way. Like I'm, it really kind of annoys me when I hear the argument being made because um, I think what they're not able to do is to differentiate that part of what they're feeling is disgust,
Mm,
and that needs to go.
right.
Like, yes, like I recognize like when so far I mentioned I play men's baseball, right? I am one of few people of my size still doing that. So when I step out on the field, like if I'm on a new team or something, and
Mm-hmm.
people see me, they're probably going to have some natural concerns, as would I. If I see someone my size out there, like I'm wondering what they're able to do and what they can't do because of their size and what we're doing,
Right.
and so, but then, you know, and I do have limitations. There's no question about it. Do I have limitations that I wouldn't have if I were trimmer? And so, uh, when it comes to the general health of people, like, and you see when somebody is larger than what you would associate as healthy, I think the worst thing you could do right now is assume that they're not healthy. I mean, why? What's the point? You're not a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't even know if this person's walking by you. Don't feel bad for them because that's all that shame and disgust coming up.
Right.
That's the thing I have a problem with. No, but like if my kids are um, putting on weight at a rapid pace, that's beyond the limits of what you would expect at a kid their
Mm-hmm.
age.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably not gonna say a word to them. I'm probably gonna ask the doctor, pediatrician, like, hey, do I need to be concerned?
Right.
You
Right.
know?
Right. But that's more concern, whereas I think what you were talking about earlier is more judgment.
Yes, 100%.
And so I think that
Yeah,
those are two very different things.
right. So yes to concern, no to judgment,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
And I think people couch their judgment in concern. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's not fair.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm just being, I'm just, I'm not, I'm not going to accept this whole acceptance thing because, you know, that means we're just throwing health out the window. It's like, no, we're
Mm-hmm.
throwing judgment out the window. And what you're doing is couching your judgment in a genuine concern for somebody's health.
Right.
Because I can show you my paperwork, my blood work, my panels, and show you where it comes back
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, within range and everything.
Right. Absolutely.
Now, I'm always borderline a little hypothyroid, but I'm still not hypothyroid.
Well, even a little bit can have an effect on a person. But
Right.
that's a
But I'm
topic for hormones.
right. But I'm not even there yet apparently because I just had one at blood panel done. 'Cause I thought there might be something going on there, and it's always the same. It's been like this for 15 years. Like where it's like, no, getting close to being out of range, but not even far enough for us to
Mm-hmm.
consider medication. So
I love, though, that your
okay.
doctor will test these things.
Hmm.
I think, I don't know how it is for men, but yes, definitely for women. We go in, and one of the first things for larger women, one of the first things that the doctor does is pull a BMI chart,
Hmm.
out.
Oh, I hate the BMI.
And, well, it's not even accurate.
I know because you can have somebody who's like just completely ripped and muscular and be obese.
Yeah.
But
So,
based on
so can
that,
I give you a
why are they
little
still using
history
it?
with
Yeah,
the
go
BMI?
please, please.
So, the BMI, under a different name, was originally created by a mathematician astronomer from Belgium.
Oh, it makes sense.
Uh huh. Right, right. And the reason he developed it was to look at the bell curve of what a normal person,
Mm.
the average person,
Rebels doing air quotes right
kind of
now.
looks
Normal.
like, and how their body shape is. And so that's what they used it for. But even that, they only studied
Mm.
European men, and
Oh, okay.
so
Oh, okay.
insurance companies started noticing this, and they kind of took on the BMI chart
Mm-hmm.
in order to decide on the how
Mm-hmm.
much people are going to pay, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I think it was in 1970s, a researcher came back and looked at it again and did some studies on it, did some research on it. However, he only tested, I want to say about 7,800 men, healthy men, to gauge whether they're obese, whether
Mm-hmm.
they're, not obese. But there was no study on health.
Wow. Okay. So why are
So
we even using it? Like, why is there this BMI thing? How did it make its way into the medical world, and they're still using it?
I don't know.
It sounds like they're trying to get away from it a little bit, but because
Some doctors are,
yeah.
and so right now I'm the president of Oklahoma Eating Disorders Association, and that's
Mm-hmm.
one of our big pushes this year is getting more information into the doctors' hands
That's great.
about the myths and about
Yeah.
what's not accurate anymore.
Right. I agree. I hate buying clothes from Europe. Like, because if you're a double XL person, like you're buying a 5XL.
Right?
Like I'm like, no, uh, no,
Yep.
can't do it. The shame. Gotta tear that tag off the back, or just cross out the five, write a two,
Uh
or
huh.
something. You know.
Yep.
But oh, anyways, well, I appreciate you weighing in on that. I do think, kind of, I thought it was a good conclusion to our episode. Is that concern is okay, not judgment, and don't count your judgment in concern.
Right.
I think, yes, people who battle body image issues, they have a lot of work to do. Sometimes it's a major uphill climb, and sometimes, you know, um, I always call it the TV that plays in the background that's saying
Mm.
awful things about you. I don't know if we can always change the channel, but I think we can definitely turn it way down. But I think it would help for people that are judgmental toward heavier people, to really take a look at themselves, and ask, like, why do you have to feel that way? Like, why do
Right.
you have to be disgusted by somebody who doesn't fit the mold?
Mm-hmm.
Why is and so um, let's just work at doing better, basically. So.
Sounds great to me.
All right, and I think we're cutting out just in time, so Rebel can get to her next client. But just want to so thanks for doing this today, by the way, Rebel, and really appreciate it. And everybody who watched, appreciate you listening. And if you made it this far, please just take 2 seconds to give us a 5-star review, subscribe to our channel, all those things. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you back next time.